In today's video, I'm gonna talk about Vindications of Rights of Women by Mary Wollstonecraft. She was an English writer, philosopher, and advocate of women's rights. Let's begin by talking about why Mary Wollstonecraft wrote this book. So primarily, this book argued for women's right to be educated. And at this stage in history, the only education that women received was domestic, means that they were educated on how to fulfill their tasks as wives and mothers, but beyond what happened in the sphere of their home life, women weren't receiving education. The next point of book was to dispute essentialist ideas about woman nature, that every woman at their base has their own essentials and features, for example, that they are weaker, maternal, emotional, and the Vindications of Rights of Women disputes their ideas that women aren't inherently a lesser sex. And the third purpose that the book addresses is to dispute the conduct manuals that were so popular during that time, and you have read in class a few items from Renaissance women which included essays on how women were to be conducted in their marriages and how women to be educated, or more accurately not educated, and these conduct manuals were everywhere and most of them were very oppressive to women. So one of the purpose of Mary Wollstonecraft is to try to stop people to do these activities. And finally, the book does want to free women from religious oppression, so Wollstonecraft does addresses the issue that covers women from biblical sources. For example, women not being able to be in position of power, women being inherently guilty and prone to vice as an Eve. So she does emphasize the fact that those religious viewpoints are harmful to women. So there were so many prevailing ideas of the days and essential things Mary Wollstonecraft was fighting against. First of all, that women were inferior based on their physicality or disposition, so quite a lot made of the fact that women were smaller and physically weaker than men, and lots of people saw that as indication not only of what was outside, but that reflected also what was inside. So if a woman were physical, it followed that they must be mentally weaker. As well as we said before that there is the idea right now that women should only be educated in domestic subjects, and that any kind of education outside of domestic subjects would basically lead women to evil. So in the next point, there was idea that women were inherently lustful or prone to excess, and so this arises from the Madonna complex that we have addressed before, the idea that women are sort of lustful or easily tempted, and if we educate them beyond what they must know is to run house, it was believed that they would fall even deeper into these vices to which are naturally disposed. Next was the idea that women should never be in position of authority. So during reading of biblical text, and first believed that women should never be allowed to teach specifically, but more broadly be in position of authority over men, and that was another thing that was based in religion, but had quite great deal of power over women in general during the time. And finally, that woman original sin is based with Eve, and that Eve and her temptation account for woman's essential inferiority and sinfulness. So here is how Mary Wollstonecraft responded to each of these norms of that time. So first off, she says that educated woman is equal to better society in general. So she says, you know, the women are the one who are going to be raising your children. So if you educate women, you're gonna get better children. You will have more educated members of society to decide on a public policy and those kind of things. There is really no downside, she says, to educating women. Next, she says that women should not be treated like children. So there is running theme throughout human history and literature of women being infantilized, means that they are treated by men the same way they treat children, as incapable of making their own decisions, as incapable of knowing what is best for themselves. This is going to be continue long after the Renaissance, but Mary Wollstonecraft says we should really stop this right now because women are adults and complete people just like men are. She says my sex, I hope, will excuse me if I treat them like rational creatures instead of flattering their fascinating graces and viewing them as they were in state of perpetual childhood, unable to stand alone. So many men treated women like children as kind of a backhanded compliment, like they might say, oh, they are gentle and delicate to be concerned with these adult matters. So the men would maybe even believe that they were paying a woman a compliment, but essentially they are keeping them away from adult society. Next, Mary Wollstonecraft addresses that if women are inherently sinful or excessive or prone to addiction, she doesn't dispute that might be true, but she says that if those things are true of women, it's man's fault. She says that slaves and mobs have always gone to excess. In that way, once they have broken laws from authority, the band bow straightens the violence when the hand that is forcibly holding it is suddenly relaxed. She says that if women are behaving badly, it's because you have basically kept them as slave for so long that the minute they get a taste of freedom, they act a little wild. But she says that this is the part of a human nature. If you have kept people so suppressed for such a long time, of course they are going to behave little bit extravagantly when they get a taste of freedom. Further points of this book will be discussed in next video. Thank you so much. If this video was helpful, give it big thumbs up and subscribe my channel.